Alright everyone, so we just got a phenomenal chapter of One Piece, one of the best Luffy defeats that we've gotten in the entire series, largely because of just how abrupt it was and how brutal this looks. So let's just walk through what happened this chapter and the ramifications for the rest of Elbaf. So as you may recall, last chapter review I talked about how it was important for Oda to stay consistent with how he portrays Luffy in terms of how far along he is on his journey to becoming the strongest character. That's not just about power scaling, that is just consistent narrative storytelling and growth. Considering Luffy's main growth throughout the time skip so far has basically just been him getting stronger and training and getting upgrades and getting stronger and training and getting stronger, if that is what the author is going to focus on for Luffy for the entire post-time skip, then that needs to have meaning. If Luffy were to randomly go from his Egghead performance against Kizaru and Warcury to suddenly being able to take on Imu himself, then that would have made no sense. But luckily, Oda did not go that route because, as I've talked about in many videos previously, contrary to popular belief, Oda does care about power scaling a lot, and you can track that in Luffy's clear progression of opponents and upgrades over the course of the New World. So this moment right here needed to happen. Why? Because we've all known literally since Wano that Luffy is not yet at the level that he needs to be the man who brings the dawn of the world. I mean, even before Luffy defeated Kaido, right before it happened, Kaido was still lecturing him that Luffy has more steps that he needs to take, particularly in terms of haki. So if we know that Luffy has at least one final big leap to make to bridge the gap between him and the strongest, then it's just good writing to demonstrate what that gap looks like against the strongest. And interestingly, based on this battle, it appears that Luffy's not even second strongest on Elbaf compared to Imu. It's clear at this point that Loki is also ahead of Luffy, although I suspect that that will change by the end of the Elbaf arc. But first, you can get 9 more of your favorite One Piece characters for your wall. We have 9 new dynamically illustrated One Piece legends with 9 hidden iconic moments. Get Proud Whitebeard with a hidden final stand. Get Noble Katakuri with a hidden sacrifice. Get Legendary Kuma with a hidden dance. And plenty more along with our legends from before. And this month only, for any 2 posters you can get 2 more free and Blackwing Emu for free, with the deal auto-applied at checkout. This deal is only running for this month, and Blackwing Emu will never be available again. So make sure you get your deal now by hitting the link in the description below. I don't think that Luffy is down and out for the rest of the arc. I think he might just be down and out for the moment. This does make me very curious about Loki's full strength though, because Oda's made a very big deal repeatedly reiterating throughout the arc that Loki is severely injured, he was near death, he's very handicapped right now. This is nowhere near the best version of Loki, and Loki still fared much better against Imu compared to Luffy, with Oda deliberately seemingly playing up that Luffy was actually coming into the fight and max strength that we've ever seen him at. So considering Oda really played up that Loki was so injured going into this fight and Luffy was so at his absolute best, and yet Loki was still more impressive, suggests to me that considering the Nika user and the Nidhogg user are historically equals, that this is just a temporary scenario, and by the end of this arc we will see Luffy and Loki on equal footing. Now, walking through this fight that happened this chapter, the main thing that stands out in contrast to the Loki battle is that Luffy's fight was basically just him running a lot. Like, honestly, just reading this whole chapter, it feels like a lot of it is kind of just stretched out, because so much of it is just Luffy running away. And the times that Luffy does manage to get some attacks in, we see that Imu is able to block them very casually. It's kind of jarring to see that, unlike with Loki, where Imu was regularly having to pull out Maki to clash with or block Loki's attacks, against Luffy, Imu is very casual. At one point even blocking a giant-sized sucker punch from Luffy with his bare hand. It felt like against Loki, a lot of that battle was Imu basically dealing with and slowly negating a lot of Loki's offense, whereas this fight was basically Imu just trying to catch Luffy, and as soon as he did, it was over. And I love that Oda wrote it in this manner because it basically establishes that Imu just is that guy. He is the strongest being in the world, or at least it's fair for fans to assume that he is for the moment. We are no longer dealing with Yonko like Kaido or admirals like Kizaru. This is God. This is the character who has ruled the world for 800 years. I think this Luffy defeat being the final nail in the coffin that really cements Imu's status was a wise decision by Oda, because Imu taking out, Zoro and Sanji very quickly, that can kind of be written off and excused as like, well, at the end of the day, they're just not in Luffy's league. They're not in the Yonko's league. And then Imu having his big fight with Loki, while very epic, was in some ways still not clear enough proof of Imu's strength, because Loki is a very new character, and we haven't really seen him clearly in any other big fights. But with Luffy, Luffy's our guy. Luffy's the guy that we watched against Kaido, who we watched against Kizaru, who we watched against all of the Gorosei, and the one big trend ever since Luffy got Gear 5 is that it has never really felt like Luffy has just been outclassed ever since he got Gear 5. Even people who feel that Kaido was still stronger than Gear 5 Luffy, or that Kizaru was still stronger than Gear 5 Luffy, regardless of your interpretation, at the very bare minimum, everyone would agree that Luffy keeps it competitive in all of these battles. And it felt for some time that Luffy's reached a point where he can go toe-to-toe with pretty much anyone in the world. Not the case. We finally have a character who's clearly just head and shoulders above where Luffy is, and that is great heading into the final saga of the story. And again, I think that Luffy is headed for an upgrade this arc, and I will elaborate on this in far greater detail in this Tuesday's video. But all I'll say here is that so far, Elbaf has been an arc centered around the Straw Hats getting stronger as a whole. We've already seen that with Frankie, we already know that Sanji and Zoro are right up next. It's very likely we're getting something for Usopp. That really seems like the purpose of Elbaf in a lot of ways, to get the main characters to the level that they need to be heading into the final war. So don't count out our hero just yet. I will also add big shoutouts to Jinbei of all people, stopping the Omen Barrage. It seems like the Omen Bombs are attacks that will go off on any impact, so Jinbei's abilities are very well suited to combating those, because he can create these reverberations that cause the Omen Bombs to go off before they actually reach their target. And I will also say that I'm absolutely loving Imu's entire kit that we've been seeing so far, and it feels like there might still be more to go. Seeing him use the Omens to basically sort of recreate Luffy's own abilities in a sense, and stretch and chase after him to hit him, was really cool. But the kicker was, of course, the Void Blade that he pulled out at the end. It seemed like that might be the most powerful of his weapons that he's pulled out so far, and maybe his most powerful weapon in general. I love the effect of just seeing it drain the life of everything in the vicinity. I feel like the more that we're seeing of Imu in action, the more I think I'm starting to get the idea of what Maki and his general moveset is based around. And I do want to put out a video on how I believe that Maki works. I may do that during the break week, but again, next Tuesday's video is going to be about the future of Elbaf, because I do think it's actually set for a direction that is much more positive than people are thinking at the moment. And finally, we have a good point from the Voice of the People, my top tier of patrons. So Justin Holland said, if the Straw Hats and Elbaf make it out of this somehow, and this doesn't serve as a wake-up call to step up before the war starts, then I don't know what will. That's a great point, and again, I don't think it's so much as going to be a wake-up call as it is going to be the trial itself that forces the Straw Hats to get stronger. So I don't think there's going to be some training arc after this or a bunch of upgrades that they're going to work on after Elbaf. I think in Elbaf itself, we're going to see the Straw Hats get through this conflict and come out a lot stronger and ready for the final war. So with that, I'm giving this chapter a 10 out of 10, and I will talk to you all later.